here we go. All right, welcome in on this special Sunday edition of Morning Invest. So glad to have you here. Hope you don't mind a hoodie and a little scruff on the face this morning. Stayed up late, deep diving all the stimulus news, and then up early this morning for you. So, hey, it's the weekend. Cut me some slack. Welcome in, everyone. We're going to deep dive the stimulus news that happened overnight, the political theater that was President Trump holding that press conference there in Bedminster, New Jersey, with a favorable crowd. He had a bunch of friends show up to his little press conference, and then he had reporters there as well. So the reporters were trying to ask some questions, and then you had some of his friends in the room trying to drown out some of the reporters' questions as well. It was weird kind of political theater last night, where he signed 4 different executive orders. But the funny part was President Trump kept referring to them as bills. He kept calling them bills, even though they're not bills. The only people that can pass a bill is Congress, of course. And these were executive actions, if anything. So we're going to deep dive the different 4 parts of this stimulus package. We're going to hear some different from Mark Zandi this morning, an economist, on what this means if Republicans and Democrats cannot come to the table and pass a stimulus package on their own. Where will we be? Because to my mind, what President Trump did yesterday is nothing. I mean, it's not going to go anywhere. We'll go through why I think that, and where maybe certain pieces of it will go, but for the most part, this isn't going anywhere. And while Congress still needs to come to the table to get something done. Now, the news of the day, of course, yesterday is that Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats agreed to lower their price tag. Instead of $3.4 trillion, they said, okay, we'll come down to $2.4 trillion. They took $1 trillion off of their proposed HEROES Act. That's a fairly big concession, wouldn't you say? And Republicans really didn't budge on their price tag, staying right around that $1.3 trillion mark. So Democrats shaved $1 trillion off of that to try to get to some sort of agreement. But President Trump still said that they were obstructionists in all of this. And let's listen to the first piece of his executive action on this. Listen.
Democrats are obstructing all of it. Therefore, I'm taking executive action. We've had it. And we're going to save American jobs and provide relief to the American workers. And I'll be signing these bills in a very short period of time. First one is I'm providing a payroll tax holiday to Americans earning less than $100,000 per year. In a few moments, I will sign a directive instructing the Treasury Department to allow employers to defer payment of the employee portion of certain payroll taxes from September 1st. And we're actually going to be making that. We just got the word. We're just getting some word from a lot of people. We didn't think we'd have to do this because we thought the Democrats would be reasonable, but they've been not only unreasonable, they've been ridiculous. So we're going to make that August 1st, most likely. It'll be August 1st. We'll let you know the exact date, but we're looking like August 1st. So it'll be August 1st through the end of 2020. This will mean bigger paychecks for working families as we race to produce a vaccine and eradicate the China virus once and for all. And we're doing very good with the numbers. You see it's going down in Arizona very, very substantially and rapidly, going down in California, going down in Texas, going down in Florida. Other areas are propping up a little bit, but we're watching them very closely. We understand the disease, and we're watching them very closely, especially our senior citizens and our senior citizens' residences. If I'm victorious on November 3rd, I plan to forgive these taxes and make permanent cuts to the payroll tax. I'm going to make them all permanent. Now, Joe Biden and the Democrats may not want that. They don't want that because they're adding $3 trillion in taxes. So they'll have the option of raising everybody's taxes and taking this away. But if I win, I may extend and terminate. In other words, I'll extend it beyond the end of the year and terminate the tax. And so we'll see what happens. Biden probably won't be doing that. You'll have to ask him. I don't think he knows what he's doing.
Come on, man.
Yeah, cut me some slack. Come on, man. So some digs in there at Joe Biden last night with his friends from Bedminster who were hanging around there clapping for it. It was a weird, like I said, it was weird political theater. So that's the first piece of this executive action, is the payroll tax cut. Okay, so let's dive into that first. He would defer payroll tax payments from September through December for people who earn less than $100,000. The impact of this measure could depend on whether companies actually decide to comply with it after all, as they could be responsible for withdrawing large amounts of money from their employees' paychecks in a few months when the taxes are due. So they would have to take money out to pay the taxes for their businesses. I mean, they're responsible to pay taxes to the federal government. So what's going to happen here? You know, employers are going to have to decide what they're going to do. Are they going to yank out all this money now ahead of time? So it's a very tricky situation. It is one area, though, that Steve Forbes and others believe actually could have some teeth. It could do well by the economy to get a big payroll tax cut. Here was Steve Forbes, former presidential candidate, talking about this.
And I think the biggest thing the president could do to stimulate the economy going into the third and fourth quarters, third quarter now going into the fourth quarter, is suspending the payroll tax. If you're making $40,000 a year, that's the equivalent of $3,000 extra pay, tax-free. If you're an employer, that means hiring somebody at $40,000, that cost suddenly goes down $3,000. He suspends that payroll tax for a period of time, 8 months, 12 months. That would be a very, very powerful stimulant.
So the real question, though, is whether he can do that, because he also mentioned deferral and somehow terminate the taxes that are owed. But remember, payroll taxes fund Social Security, and of course they fund Medicare. Where else is the federal government going to get money to fund those programs without payroll taxes? This is why Republicans weren't supportive of it. This is why Democrats weren't supportive of it. The only people that were supportive of it was the White House. So in those early negotiations, Mitch McConnell was able to have him remove this from the negotiations, and then he just sort of goes around them and does it on his own. So Steve Forbes thinks that this would be a boon to the economy. More people would see money in their paychecks, and we'll see. However, there are so many people that don't have paychecks. How does this affect them? It won't. It has nothing to do with the people that lost their jobs. So that's part one of this, is the payroll tax cut, and whether or not this would even be implemented in time before the end of the year. There's a lot of things and all of these things that would need to be structured and set up, and I don't know that they can pull this off, a unilateral payroll tax cut. The next thing that President Trump talked about was this.
Second, I'm signing an executive order directing the Department of Housing and Urban Development, HHS, and CDC to make sure renters and homeowners can stay in their homes. So I'm protecting people from eviction. Yet you've been hearing a lot about eviction, and the Democrats don't want to do anything having to do with protecting people from eviction. I said, let's do that separately. That could be a totally separate thing from passing along money so people can live. And they didn't even want to protect people from eviction. So,
Come on, man.
Again, really? That Democrats didn't care about people being evicted? Did you see the HEROES Act? There's over $200 billion in there specifically to keep people in their homes. $100 billion for rental assistance. Like, I'm not defending the Democrats' position here, but they're not here to defend themselves, so I have to do it to lay out the facts. It's very important for us to understand that in the Democrats' proposal, there was money to pay rent. In the president's eviction proposal yesterday, there's no money. There's no money for you to pay back rent. It only has a moratorium on evictions in part. So again, the Democrats realize that the way to not be evicted is to pay your rent and to get caught up on back rent that needs owed to your landlord as well. The other part of the HEROES Act was $100 billion aimed at landlord assistance for those people that have mortgages, to pay their mortgages. It was a two-part approach. So for President Trump to say Democrats didn't care about evictions is political theater and simply wrong. So just wipe that clean. That is not true at all. But what the president's eviction moratorium would do also doesn't have much legs. It doesn't have much teeth either. So it has no legs, no teeth. Now let's dive into what this eviction moratorium would be. So he vowed yesterday to protect millions of Americans from the threat of eviction, but it has a serious, serious shortcoming. It would do nothing to help the vast majority of the country's tenants. Why? Let's go deeper. The lawmakers have been unable to agree on extending the federal moratorium on evictions, and the ban itself shields barely a quarter of the 44 million people that are expected to lose their homes through evictions. Barely a quarter. Now that's something, I'll give you that. That is something. However, it only punts the football down the field, and there's no money to actually pay the back rent. So what you're doing is you're deferring all of these evictions just for a few months. And only residents of buildings that have federally guaranteed mortgages would be eligible for this. That means the landlord would have to have a Fannie or Freddie mortgage on the property for the tenant in that property to have an eviction moratorium. How is the tenant going to figure this out? And are these landlords going to comply with this? The rest live in rental units right now with private mortgages, and millions of them could face eviction, even if the federal government extends the ban, because dozens of states have either offered tenants no protection or have let their moratoriums expire. I mean, there are states that have said the moratoriums are done. So the only reason this even worked in the first place over the past few months is because you had some states with their own sort of patchwork of moratoriums, and then you had this federal moratorium patchwork on top. And this little ugly Raggedy Ann doll of a patchwork kind of kept people from losing their homes and being kicked out for a short time. Again, all it did, though, was throw the football down the field. That's it. I guess punt the football down the field, right? Another sports analogy, they just passed the buck, right? It's pass the puck. They passed the puck down the ice. That's it. Because if they don't have money to pay the back rent, they're going to have to get caught up at some point, and if they don't, then they're open for eviction. So this directive to halt evictions primarily calls for federal agencies to consider if they should be stopped. This really has no teeth at all, folks. So anybody who was hoping that President Trump was riding in on a white horse last night and was going to keep people from being evicted, no, it won't. So Diane Yentl, who's the president and CEO of the National Low Income Housing Coalition, basically said that this is not going to really help anybody, that if you really want to help this, you need to provide rental assistance. You need to provide rental assistance, and that's it. They need to be able to have some of this rent absolved. And then that also helps the landlords who are behind on their mortgages because they're not able to pay their mortgages because their tenant can't pay their rent. It's a whole big cycle. And then there's no property taxes being collected. And then firefighters, it's a whole big circle when people can't pay their rent. Does this do anything for that? No, it does not. So, and again, many of the vulnerable tenants here live in Trump areas. Many of them voted for Trump in 2016. And so if you have over 9.6 million people in Texas alone are renters, and there is no statewide ban in place in Texas, these people are going to lose their homes. More than 900,000 renters in Mississippi are also out of luck under this plan. 450,000 people in West Virginia are out of luck. Again, these are all places that voted for Trump. So if you think this eviction moratorium is going to do much of anything, you're wrong. Now that we've had a chance to digest and go deeper into what this actually means, I'm not hopeful of any of it. The next piece, the third part of President Trump's plan would do this.
The third action I'm taking today will also provide additional support for Americans who are unemployed due to the China virus. Under the CARES Act, I proudly signed expanded unemployment benefits into law. Congressional Democrats have stonewalled our efforts to extend this relief. They even opposed measures that would give bonuses to workers returning to the job. They were totally opposed to that. For this reason, I'm taking action to provide an additional or an extra $400 per week in expanded benefits. $400, okay? So that's generous, but we want to take care of our people. Again, it wasn't their fault, it was China's fault.
So it was China's fault, and Democrats had no interest in extending unemployment benefits. Is that true? Let me ask you in the chat, are you intelligent enough to know the answer to that? Yes, I'm sure you know that Democrats have been pushing for a continuation of the $600 per week more enhanced unemployment benefits. It was a part of the HEROES Act they passed nearly 3 months ago now. So to say that they were not in favor of extending unemployment benefits is, again, political theater. It's not true. And they really were not, they were even willing to come down to $400. According to the reports, they were willing to come down and come halfway with Republicans on this, $400 a week instead of $600 a week. But they couldn't figure out the larger framework of any bill. So Republicans and Democrats saw eye to eye, at least in part, on that unemployment benefit extension. It was not going to be $600, it was going to come down to $400. So again, President Trump being disingenuous, saying that Democrats had no interest in extending unemployment benefits. But this is the thing, when you're the president of the United States, you have the power of the microphone. You can get up there and you can use that, you can say something like that, and then you can have people sitting at home on their couches with their husband and wife, they're going, really? Democrats didn't want to do that? Thank you, President Trump. So I'm here to try to cut through some of this smog for you, if you can, and provide some context. Now, Steve Forbes, once again, thinks that this unemployment benefit thing is a non-starter anyway. He thinks that they should have passed a check, a big stimulus check. But you'll notice that that's not part of what President Trump announced last night. No stimulus checks, no direct payment to the American people, nothing. And that's where Steve Forbes thinks that the president totally dropped the ball here. Listen.
Another thing I think is what they do on unemployment benefits. And right now, I think what they should be pushing for, the Republicans, instead of negotiating on that, instead go for a big individual check for individuals. We did $1,200 per individual in the spring. They should go for $1,500 or $2,000 going into the fall. That would take care of anything that happens on the unemployment benefits, give people money instantly, and lowering the payroll tax, lowering the cost of hiring people. That preserves jobs, creates jobs. Those two things. Big individual check, suspending the payroll tax, that would really boost the economy.
So those are the two pieces that Steve Forbes sees as the unemployment benefits. Forget that piece of it. Focus really on getting people additional checks, $2,000 instead of the $1,200, and then also extending that payroll tax cut. Those are the two pieces he believes. Economists can weigh in on the on the extent of that, and if that makes any sense. But I will say this: didn't President Trump, in his own words, multiple times, say to us that we would see a bigger, better stimulus package? That he wanted his plan would be bigger and better than what the Democrats wanted. His words, not mine. So Democrats wanted $600 a week in unemployment benefits. President Trump just signed an executive order, which was not better, it's lower. It's an executive order. So he didn't have to even wait on Congress on that. It's up to him to do it. It's lower. That's not bigger and better. There's no direct stimulus checks of any kind of executive order in his plan. Of course, he doesn't have the power of the purse. And I think he realizes that he can't just sign an executive order sending money to the American people. That has to come from Congress. And that's where so many of these pieces anyway will still have to come from Congress. This is likely not going to pass. I mean, he doesn't have to pass anything because it's an executive order. But to put all of these pieces in place is not likely going to happen. So again, that piece of it that President Trump was talking about is the unemployment benefits. So it would be $400 in weekly unemployment aid. He said that, now here's the big, this is perhaps the most contentious of all of his four that he announced yesterday, that Trump said 25% of this money would be paid by states, many of which are already dealing with major budget shortfalls. The federal contribution would be redirected from disaster relief money at the Federal Emergency Management Agency from FEMA. So what they're going to do is take hurricane money that's set aside for FEMA in case we have hurricane damage in this country over the next few months. We're going to use that money and we're going to redirect it to unemployment benefits. He thinks he can do that. We don't know. Those funds, though, are not likely to last more than 2 months. And President Trump would not say, when asked about it, how those benefits would actually kick in or when they would. We don't have a date on that yet. But a national expert on unemployment benefits said that one of the actions would not increase federal unemployment benefits at all. Instead, the expert said it would instead create a new program that could take months to set up. So this wouldn't be an extension of the unemployment benefits you've already had. It would be an entirely new program that would take months to set up. So this idea that, hey, next week you're going to start to see unemployment benefits again from President Trump is not going to happen, according to these experts. The next piece of legislation that President Trump talked about was this.
Fourth, I'm signing a directive providing relief to student loan borrowers. Earlier this year, we slashed student loan interest rates to zero. I don't know if people know that because the press doesn't ever report it, but maybe they're watching now. The press doesn't report a lot of good things that are good for the people and good for the country. Earlier this year, we slashed student loans, interest rates to 0% and suspended student loan payments, and Congress extended that policy through September 30th. Today, I'm extending this policy through the end of the year, and we'll extend it further than that, most likely right after December 1st. So we look like we're going to be extending that. They're paying zero interest. And again, not their fault that their colleges are closed down, and not their fault that they're unable to get what they bargained for.
Okay, student loan interest. Remember, student loan interest is fine. It's one thing, but it's the payments are still accruing, and it's still building up. You just don't have to pay it right now. So you're going to still have to pay those student loans. You're just pushing them again further down the football field. Wouldn't have been. And remember, Democrats in their plan had $10,000 student loan forgiveness as part of their HEROES Act. So this just stops them from having to pay student loan interest for a few months. But the payments keep piling up. The amount that you're going to have to pay back in student loans keep piling up. It's just giving you a temporary, time. If you're not employed and you can't find a job and you've left college and you can't find employment right now, you can defer those student loan payments till later on. So Nancy Pelosi fired back on all of this, of course. Last night she issued this statement, her office did. And here's what Nancy Pelosi has to say. These policy announcements provide little real help to families. She said that instead of passing a bill, now President Trump is cutting families' unemployment benefits and pushing states further into budget crisis, forcing them to make devastating cuts to life or death services. And they said they pointed out that President Trump's housing plan provides no assistance to help pay the rent. They also said Trump's action on unemployment does not funnel additional money to the existing unemployment program, but instead creates a new program for lost wages that states will have to set up from scratch. And it could take months for such an effort to get off the ground. And states have already been overwhelmed in trying to set up the unemployment insurance programs. So I see really one piece of this that actually is good. It's the student loan interest deferral through the rest of the year. None of these other things do I think are going to help really anyone. And we'll have to wait and see whether or not this eviction piece, where it's only going to help those people who are in a building with a federally backed mortgage, a Fannie or Freddie mortgage. So it's just a quarter of the people that are about to be evicted. And then he says that Democrats don't care about evictions when what they were calling for in their plan is eviction, a rental assistance so people can actually pay their rent, so they're actually not going to be evicted, or deferred eviction for another few months. So that's the very latest on that. Mark Zandi weighed in on all of this because we still, I think, at the heart of this, need to pass a bill. And Congress needs to pass a bill. They need to come to the table. Nancy Pelosi has already agreed to drop $1 trillion off of her $3.4 trillion offer. So it would go down to $2.4 trillion on the Democrat side. That's a fairly big concession, I would say. Earlier last week, she said, nope, we're not budging on that price. It's a fairly big concession, but still they have no bill. Mark Zandi believes that if these lawmakers can't get a bill together, we're going to be stuck in a recession.
If lawmakers can't get it together for whatever reason, if they defy logic, both economic and political logic, and can't get it done, then we're going back into recession. Unemployment will be stuck in the double digits until the other side of the pandemic. So that means through most of next year. And that, in my view, would go down in history as a depression.
There you go. He's been cautious to say things would become a depression. He's been cautious in that, saying that, recession. But for Mark Zandi to say this would be an economic depression, that's going to be a huge problem. Grover, what are you barking at? He doesn't. Yeah, he agrees with Mark Zandi. So that's the very latest on the stimulus front on this Sunday. If you are new here, go ahead and subscribe to the channel and smash that like button. We do this show live every morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. It's the only morning business show for the average American, not the Wall Street type, where we break down what's going on in the economy, how it affects you and your family, and the broader news of the day, of course. Plus, my co-host Grover is always here with me. He's now 6 months. He's actually 6 months old today. That's right, he was born on February 9th. So happy 6-month birthday to Grover Dog. We have our new mugs that are going to be in our store. If you go to our channel store, they're right here. And so we're getting those rolled out. I'm super excited about those, plus our sweatshirts and everything else we're working on. So thank you so much. I know so many of you have ordered them already. I'm ordering some for my wife for her birthday as well, coming up here in a few weeks. Busy Sunday. So thank you so much for subscribing to the channel. Let's open it up for some Q&A now on this Sunday a little bit. See if I can get the chat room caught up a little bit. Any questions you have? I saw some people asking about SSDI, SSL. No, this does not cover any of that. Remember, these are President Trump's own executive actions that have it's not a broad-based stimulus bill. It's just four executive actions that probably won't go anywhere. Unfortunately. Oh, you're so nice. James just ordered his mug. Grover and you share a birthday. Latestra, sorry. The font is so small on my screen. Latestra, happy birthday. How many other birthdays are today? August 9th. Grover has a 6-month birthday. Yeah, and sorry it's Sunday. It's Sunday. It's hoodie Sunday. Let's kick back and listen to Beatles music, have some coffee, do some work, get caught up on some big projects, and clean the house. We did a top to bottom scrubbing of the house this morning before the show. James Palermo says, Clayton, if the payroll tax cut is approved, does that mean we will have to pay those taxes when filing our 2020 taxes? Pay your taxes when filing your 2020 taxes. I don't know the answer to that. Again, we don't have the full details of this, Jamie. I can get some answers for you from our great accounting team tonight, and then on tomorrow's show, I'll be able to answer some of those questions. If you join me tomorrow, I'll deep dive some of those questions a little bit more. Hi, baby. I'm gonna say hi. You got crazy hair. Just take a little. You'll just wake up. So we'll answer that question for you. Because remember, under the other stimulus packages, those are a 2020 tax credit. But if you're slashing payroll taxes, you're not going to pay, like it would not come out of your paycheck. And therefore, you would not be charged that. You would still be charged on your income tax, like what money you actually make on your income tax. So if those are now lowered, you would see an additional amount in your paycheck, and therefore you shouldn't, to my mind, have to pay that at the end of the year on your income tax. I don't believe so, because under the payroll tax cut in 2016, people saw about a 7% increase in their paycheck, and that means that you did not have to pay those in taxes later. But again, we'll get deeper answers on this. We don't fully know how this is going to be implemented yet. This was President Trump last night signing these executive actions, and we don't know. Where's Mom? She just did some workout, so she's Tim Bomba wants to know where our mug can be purchased. Right on our store. If you go to our, let me pull it up here. Sorry, here. I'll pull it up on the screen. If you go to our channel page, so just go to youtube.com/MorrisInvest. Morris Invest. We're going to probably be changing the name of our channel, actually. We're probably going to be changing it to Morning Invest very soon. But if you come right here to the channel page, do you see right here on the front where it says Store, right here in the middle? If I click Store, and you can also join our channel as a channel member right here as well, but if you click Store, the Don't Be a D mug is available, but the Grover mug should be live here in very shortly. It should be anyway. You click on this. So here's the Don't Be a D, the Don't Be a D mug, which is D-I-C-K. That's the only rule I have in my family. Just don't be a D. Just be kind to people. You know when you're being a D, right? And go back. Oops, nope, that's not how we do it. Sorry. Anyway, yeah, so these mugs are available on the storefront. I'll put a link directly to this mug in the description below if anyone's interested in it. Well, Natasha, her 63rd birthday is today. Happy birthday, Natasha. Thank you for spending your morning with us here on the show. I appreciate it. And you said, thank you for your much needed voice of reason at this time. Love your show, your family, and of course, Grover, you're so sweet. Brad Coleman says, I heard that to be eligible for the extra $400 per week, you have to collect at least $100 per week from your state unemployment. If you're collecting less than $100 a week, you will not qualify. Right, they're going to have to, the states will have to pay 25% of this plan, which, again, this is a new program. This is not the unemployment program that's currently in place. This is a new program. This is why unemployment experts are saying that no, this will not happen anytime soon. That a leading national expert on unemployment said this, that one of the actions would not increase federal unemployment benefits at all. Instead, the expert said it would instead create a new program that could take months to set up, unfortunately. Not good. Not good.
Come on, man.
Exactly. Exactly, Joe. Exactly. And then, of course, the student loan piece. So if you're just tuning in late, we had 4 pieces of executive action last night by President Trump because allegedly he was sick and tired of Congress. But it was all political theater. This was an attempt to score political points and to help him get reelected. But these have real little teeth to them at all. Likely nothing is going to happen. I don't see any of these other than perhaps the student loan interest deferment part. Betsy DeVos had done that back in March under the Education Department. That's one piece that could be implemented, which again is fine. I'm not against, not having to pay these interest payments, but they still pile up. So these kids will have to pay them at some point. This is not student loan forgiveness. This is just deferment. Again, it's just punting the football down the football field. That's it. The eviction moratorium would only be in place. That's the second piece of this. So student loan, eviction moratorium would only be effective for those people that are living in a federally backed mortgage house. Meaning, if you're a tenant, your landlord would have to have a Fannie or Freddie mortgage on the property you're living in order for you to qualify for an eviction moratorium for 2 months. Doesn't take into account the other 30 million people that are not with mortgages backed by the federal government. So this does very little. And there's no money for rental assistance. So great, an eviction moratorium, again, just pushes the football further down the field. Or kicks the can down the street. Just keep kicking the can down the street. Eventually those people will have to pay their rent. And now it'll be a much bigger hole that they're in without any federal assistance. Democrats wanted up to $100 billion in rental assistance. But I just couldn't stand where President Trump came out there at the podium and said that Democrats were not concerned about evictions. Really? That's about the biggest pile of horse crap I've heard. Unemployment benefits is the other piece of this plan. President Trump is setting up this unemployment benefits of $400 per week, but it's like a new plan. It's not going to be the existing plan, so experts agree that this will take months to set up and would require states to step to the table with 25% of the $400, at basically $100. And these states already are strapped, and they don't have, it's on them to set this up, by the way. They've kicked the can over to the states. Now the states have to set up these programs if they want to. And the biggest piece of all of this is the payroll tax cut. The president wants to put in place this payroll tax cut. Who earn less than $100,000, they would defer their payroll tax payments from September through December. So they'll notice a bigger paycheck from September through December. But again, this also is up to whether or not companies would comply with this, because companies could be responsible for withdrawing large amounts of money from their employees' paychecks in a few months when the taxes are due. What are they going to do? They have to pay taxes on those employees under their states. So a lot of questions here. I just think that this is total political theater on the part of the president, trying to score political points. It has no teeth at all. Don't be mesmerized by this, and don't fall for the spin. I'm telling you where the areas I think have the most teeth. I think the only piece of this that I think is going to be implemented is just the extension of student loan deferment for interest payments. Perhaps the payroll tax deferment will be able to be implemented. And there's no telling when this eviction moratorium piece would go into effect and how that will be implemented. So I think there's a lot of this we still don't know. And, again, Republicans don't think that this, or Democrats don't think that this does much of anything. I'm most interested, though, this morning, and we'll report on it maybe this afternoon or first thing tomorrow on the show. What is the Republican response to all of this? Now that Republicans in the Senate basically totally dithered and didn't do a darn thing. So we'll see how this all shapes up. That's the show on this Sunday. I want to thank you all for joining us. I really do. I really appreciate it. So thank you guys so much for joining us for a little bit here on this Sunday. I appreciate it. I do read all these comments. Gail Briggs wants to know, Clayton, do you read all these comments? I do. I try to. And then I read all of your comments after the show is live, too. So if you want to leave me any comments as well, I go through them. Thank you for all of your super chats. We have a bunch of new people that joined our channel today. Thank you for all of our new channel members as well. Hard Worker, thank you for your super chat. Order says if you make under $100 in state, you don't get the federal unemployment protection. Right. States cover 100 of it, and it's funded $46 billion or December with 30 million unemployment, which will last only until August, and all political smoke and mirrors. Exactly. Terry, you just had a 5.1 earthquake in North Carolina. Are you guys okay? Clayton, do you think the unemployment executive order will hold up? I don't think so. I don't see how states who are already totally crushed are going to try to put this new federal unemployment program in place. Republicans in Congress know it. They have to put in a big federal program. Look, this is all political smoke and mirrors. It's an effort for him to look good. He knows that none of this stuff is going to go through. I think it would be really different if they thought that this was going to, if they really thought this would work. Either his advisors must be smoking crack, or he's just surrounded by sycophants who are lying to him. But I don't see how much, if maybe 20 of, I would say, look, if 20% of this gets pushed through, then fine, good. It's better than nothing at this point. But I also think that it doesn't go far enough, and it's just, it's really sad. It's really sad right now. This is America. that Congress, after 9 days, couldn't come together on a plan. Nancy Pelosi agreed to drop her package by $1 trillion. Republicans wouldn't budge on state and local funding, so she shaved off $1 trillion of her plan. They appeared to be conceding on the $600 per week unemployment benefit part. Republicans, for their part, appeared to be conceding on that. So, Nancy Pelosi at the last minute said, hey, you know what? We'll shave off $1 trillion. Can we come to a plan? And nothing. So that's where we're at, folks, on this Sunday. I'm going to get back to cleaning the house a little bit, spending some time with the family. Please be good to each other. Thank you so much for all of your support. And by the way, I'm super excited because our new UFO video will be live on our other channel. We just set the premiere on that. It's going to be tonight. And boy, I got chills. I showed the video to my kids today and they loved it. And it's some of the best work that I think we've ever done. So if you're interested in mysteries, UFO stories, we've got a big UFO story that we're going to be publishing on our other channel. It's youtube.com/paranormalpost. If any of you are interested in subscribing to that, come on over and check it out. Here's the channel in case you're interested. Again, it's mysteries, unexplained stories. So here it is. It's premiering tonight. It's called It Started Following Me, the Tehran UFO Incident. It's a great story, and I'm super excited to bring it to you tonight. So come on over and subscribe. Again, it's youtube.com/paranormalpost. And I will be there live during the premiere tonight. I'm super excited about it. So please come and join us over there. We put it took us like over 2.5 weeks to put this video together. So a lot of work, and we've really gotten into a good flow for that channel. So I'm excited to be able to bring more videos over there on a regular basis. We already shot another one that's going to be up there very soon as well. So we continue to work. No rest for the weary. Much love to all of you. Have a great Sunday, everyone. And we'll see you back here first thing tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Time on Morning Invest. Thank you for subscribing.